7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey there guys, so I thought it was the perfect opportunity to updated rankings list of Power Rangers seasons, and I did do this list about 4 years ago with the ending of Beast Morphers, and before that was the release of the 2017 movie. But now, since it's been a year since Cosmic Fury was released, which ended the 30-year continuity, but also it's my 30th coming up, I thought it was kind of a full circle moment for me, and I kind of moved away from Power Ranger related videos, and I feel like this will be the last one I will be doing on this channel for a while. So same rules apply for my other rankings videos. The Mighty Morphin will be split into their 3 seasons, but seasons like Samurai and Megaforce, both of those seasons will be combined together, and the same rules apply for like Dino Fury, because the 2 seasons and Cosmic Fury will be all one thing. At number 23 is Megaforce and Super Megaforce. I hate this series with a passion, but let's just start with a few things I liked about this disgraceful series. Gia and the Robo Knight were the best Rangers by far. By all means, I'm not calling them great, but at least they had some kind of substance to them. And I don't have anything against the cast themselves. I've met Andrew Gray, who was a really nice guy, but the acting was so wooden.
Robo Knight! You have a mission to fulfill!
And Spirit of the Tiger was a good episode that pays tribute to Jungle Fury, and I wish we had more episodes like these. Not for every series of course, but with some good writing that pays tribute to a particular series with a guest star, it could have been great. That being said, this show made me be ashamed to be a Power Ranger fan. Every episode felt like an advertisement for a new toy. What was the point of introducing a new Zord? Because by the time you get to the next episode, you're going to forget about it because it introduces another new Zord. And I know this would have been difficult adapting Ghost Ranger with the whole Angels in Heaven concept, but just because it's the 20th anniversary doesn't mean you could be as close as Mighty Morphin as possible. And when you get to Super Megaforce, which completely ignores the pirate theme from Go Kaija, I mean, the writers didn't do any research. I mean, they can't even pronounce Animaria, and they don't even know what Corinth looks like. What pisses me off about Super Megaforce that the writing was so lazy. Most of it was Gokaiger footage, even with Sentai suits that's never been adapted before. And when you get to Legendary Battle, it's so bad. Yes, it's cool to see past Rangers return, and I liked how they were featured at the beginning of the finale. Apart from Mike and Emily, there was no point in them returning if they was just going to stand there with no lines. What really annoys me about Legendary Battle, this was teased at the very beginning with Troy having visions, but there's no payoff.
I knew it. I've dreamt about this.
Is that it? I mean, this was teased for like 2 years, and it just feels so tacked on for the last 2 minutes of the show, and most of it was Gokaiger footage, and I find that to be insulting. This show was so bad, it made me want to watch Gokaiger, which is a phenomenal show. It's a great starting point if you want to watch Super Sentai. At number 22 is Ninja Steel and Super Ninja Steel. From a quality standpoint, it's just as bad as Megaforce. We're filled with fart jokes, unnecessary filler episodes, the characters are unbearable, the villains are bland, and I know Ninja wasn't a well-received Sentai series. I don't mind the suits, but apart from that there was nothing else special, especially the Megazords. They were a letdown. There are a few things I liked about this show. Mick was a good mentor to the Rangers. He wasn't anything special. At times, yes, he was cringe, but he served his purpose. He gives good advice to the Rangers.
So, they did what you like to do, but then you wouldn't do what they like to do because you don't like board games. Is that right?
Well, sort of. It sounds selfish when you put it like that.
Oh, sorry. How else would you put it?
The Long Lost Brothers revealed with Aiden and Brody surprisingly worked, and Victor and Monty weren't funny, but I was more entertained and invested with them more than anything else in the show.
My 50th trophy! It's so beautiful!
The main reason why I put it over Megaforce, because at least they got the anniversary aspect right. Dimensions in Danger has its flaws, but it was a good time, especially seeing Tommy again with the Master Morpher. But I shouldn't say this, after Dimensions in Danger, I went straight to the finale. I struggled getting through this series. At number 21 is Samurai and Super Samurai, the worst adaptation to a Sentai series. Shinkenger was a Sentai series that was so heavy on Japanese culture and history, and Saban took the template of that and translated it for an audience of children, filmed in New Zealand with non-Japanese actors with limited time to production, to the point they were just copying dialogue from Shinkenger.
Let me ask this again. Who is this guy?
Wow, he's so sparkly.
Now, I remember when the news broke that Saban brought the rights back from Disney, and we were all excited, including me, that Power Rangers was going back to its home. And I remember when it was first released, that first episode, it was a filler episode because the two-part origin episode wasn't ready yet. Not a good first impression. Samurai has the same problems as my previous two. Terrible acting, terrible writing. The Deca storyline was boring. Master Sander didn't do anything bringing back Bulk, but as a desperate attempt to draw back old fans. But I appreciate the reunion with Bulk and Skull at the end. And the most beautiful looking battleizer to date, but somehow it can only be used in a Megazord cockpit. And I know I have problems with Legendary Battle, but I do think Clash of the Red Rangers is the worst team up of all time. The Samurai Megazord is a beautiful design, and I think the Megazord battles themselves were the saving grace of the show. And I'm still surprised that this show pulled off a decent finale. At number 20 is Operation Overdrive. Yes, it has the same problems as my previous three choices, with the Rangers and the villains weren't memorable and also poorly written. The treasure hunting storyline was so lackluster, especially when you're so contained in New Zealand. But we forget, Operation Overdrive is a bad series, but with great material and substance. The aesthetics were there for a great series. Whether it's the suits, the Megazords, the idea of the multiple villain factions. But there's also some great episodes. Kick into Overdrive is still one of the best premieres in the franchise. Home and Away is a fascinating two-parter with Taizon living in this Matrix world built on lies. And I still contend,
Once a Ranger, always a Ranger,
is a top-tier team-up anniversary special. Operation Overdrive may be the worst in the Disney era, but at least it beats most of the Neo Saban era. At number 19 is Mighty Morphin Series 2. Oh god. This is the part when I get all the dislikes and all the comments saying, you hate Mighty Morphin, how dare you. Let me be clear, I'm talking about Series 2. Series 2 has some fun nostalgic episodes to me, like Zed's Waves, Goldar's Vice Versa, Blue Ranger Gone Bad, Best Man for the Job, and White Light will always be a personal favourite of mine.
Guess who's back?
But on a serious matter, it's a mess of a series, and that's mainly down to the inconsistent changes of the show. I mean, it does take the formula of Series 1, but mixing it with the American footage, with the Su2 footage, with also the Die-Rated footage, is a bit of a mess. I mean, you never see the monsters or the Rangers together on screen, unless it's the White Ranger, which feels so out of place, and it doesn't really help introducing a new Megazord at the start of the show. The Thunder Megazord, which is a sweet Megazord by the way, but mixing it with the Su2 footage was kind of messy. It would have just been fine just keeping the original Megazord till the Su2 footage ran out, then introduce the Thunder Megazord. The thing that really bothers me about Mighty Morphin Series 2 was the cast swap. Jason, Zach and Trini deserve better, but I can understand why they went for this approach since the actors walked out. Rocky, Adam, Aisha were fine, but they really just were blank slates filling in the gaps at the time. Lord Zed started off as an interesting villain, but when you really think about it, he doesn't really do anything new compared to Rita. And in the second half of the show, making him much more goofy and married to Rita was a big mistake. Tommy coming back as the White Ranger was great, but him becoming the leader over Jason, I didn't like that. But luckily Austin St. John was only in the show for like a few more episodes after. At number 18 is Dino Charge and Dino Supercharge. Now, I used to have this high on this list, but this is a show I don't really go back to as much. And if this was just Dino Charge alone, I would have had this so much higher. But Dino Charge, when it first came out, it was a breath of fresh air, especially for the Neo Saban era. It improved what came before with a great set of characters, interesting mythology. It has the spirit and the heart that you want from a Power Rangers show. This is hands down the funniest series to date. This show made me laugh out loud.
You completed your your mission already?
Not yet. I just came back for dinner. I'm hungry.
Keep searching me, or you've already had your last meal. Send them back to Earth.
The villains were a breath of fresh air. Sledge is still one of my favourite villains to date. It's a shame he was done dirty in Ninja Steel and Beast Morphers. But when you get to Dino Supercharged, that's when it falls apart for me. James and Centerwing were uninteresting Rangers. The big reveal of Tyler's dad was kind of lackluster, and the Silver Ranger arc was kind of boring. I think Centerwing would have been a much more interesting character if he was more of a human-like character than this guy in his costume. Taking Sledge out for most of Dino Supercharged was a big mistake. The new villains were just bench warmers compared to him, and the finale was a rushed mess with the whole time travel stuff. And you could tell they really tried to push that Heckle Redemption arc to its full potential and also make him part of a team, but since they didn't have access to the Dark Ranger suit, they kind of missed the mark on that. But I will say the Titano-charged Megazord is great in terms of Megazords. It was great to see a Brachiosaurus that wasn't a carrier sword. At number 17 is Beast Morphers, the first series to be distributed by Hasbro. Unfortunately, it still has the same creative team from the Neo Saban era, and it still has those issues from seasons before, but it's not as bad here. Beast Morphers is a very solid series. Unfortunately, it's a safe series that doesn't really hit to its full potential with its characters and storyline. I love the suits, but everything else, like swords or arsenal, were just meh. The villains were fine, but nothing special. But I thought Grid Battle Force was a cool concept. Ravi, Devon and Zoe, I really liked them. I thought they had some great material to work with and still isn't as good as his Sentai counterpart, but I liked his ambition of wanting to be human. But I had a tough time with Nate. I mean, I thought his dialogue was cringe, and his whole storyline of wanting to be brothers with a robot, I thought that was a bit too far-fetched, especially with Power Rangers.
Rangers have always been like my family, but now I finally have a real brother.
The Dino team-up storyline is flawed in so many ways, but I appreciate what they were going for.
It's morphin' time! Unleash the power! Tyrannosaurus!
But I loved it how this series gave closure to a cliffhanger from RPM that was 10 years before. And I did say back in like 2017 when I did do a rankings video, I thought Go Busters would make a great sequel to RPM.
I was vengeance. I have had many forms, and now my victory is certain.
So how I see Beast Morphers, it's a good step towards greater seasons. At number 16 is Turbo. This one has always been an oddball for me, and this one has gone up over the past several years. The best way I would describe Turbo, it's half bad, half great. And I know this was meant to be the soft reboot for the franchise by drawing new fans in without acknowledging previous seasons. That's why they got rid of Sordon and Alpha at the beginning of the show.
Goodbye, Rangers. I miss you already.
Goodbye, Zordon.
Goodbye, Alpha.
The first half of the show doesn't work for so many reasons, but I will say there's some great material far and few in between, like Catherine dealing with anorexia, the Rangers getting shrunk was very creative. I liked the idea of the Rangers graduating and taking on new challenges. Unfortunately, the show doesn't explore that all that much, and that's mainly down to the Sentai series it was adapting, Car Ranger, which was a very goofy series which restrains the characters from growing up. Tommy, Adam, Tanya and Catherine were handled fine, but you could tell they weren't suited for this series. I hated the fact that Tommy suddenly has a thing for race car driving now, and I didn't mind Justin. A kid being a ranger was a cool idea, but him being smarter than the other rangers, I didn't like that. And the whole plot about the detonator device for the first half of the series really dragged. And Bulk and Skull were at their lowest point. The first half they were just monkeys, and in the second half they couldn't keep a job for more than 10 minutes. And I'll stand by this. Rally Racer and Alarmed and Dangerous are some of the worst episodes in Power Rangers. But when you get to the second half with the new cast, that's when it becomes much more enjoyable because it's a clean slate of characters which are much more suited for the series. And it has some classic episodes like Trouble by the Slice where the Rangers get stuck inside a giant pizza. Darkest Day and One Last Hope takes the show much more serious but also raised the stakes, and it was a great way to introduce a new Megazord. And Chase into Space is a finale that is too perfect for Turbo. If the first half was strong as the second half, this could have been top 10.
Good luck, Rangers.
At number 15 is Mystic Force. I don't care what people say about this. I think this is an enjoyable series that knocked out this part with its magic theme. And this came out in 2006 with the whole Harry Potter craze. There's a lot to like about Mystic Force. Korag was a breath of fresh air in terms of generals. At times he crippled the Rangers' abilities and confidence.
Look at your pitiful selves. You are defenseless. I waste my time.
And I'll stand by this. Mystic Force has the best stunt work in the franchise. And Dark Wish is one of my favourite arcs in the franchise. It's a really cool what if story that has excellent payoff to my favourite team power-up, Legend Mode.
All aboard the power of light magic. Mystic Force Legend Warriors.
But I will say Mystic Force does get a bit too inconsistent with its characters and storylines. Especially when Nick takes most of the focus of the series. And I feel like the whole build up to the boss villain Optimus the Master for the last couple episodes was so anticlimactic. He felt like an average monster of the week. I thought the other villains beforehand like Morticon, Imperus, the Ten Terrors were a lot more interesting. And you could love it or hate it, but I think the theme song was dope. At number 14 is SPD. I've always really liked this one, however there are things preventing me loving it. I liked how everyone got their own arc. Even Boom had his own focus episode. Bridge and Sky were my favourites. Reflections is a top tier story. Sky becoming the Red Ranger for a short period of time for his revenge for his father's death is a crowd pleaser scene.
One's for you, Dad.
SPD emergency.
Beginnings is a great premiere. It gives you small doses of what's to come. What is Space Patrol Delta? Who is this mysterious villain? How does Commander Kruger know so much about these crime bots? Why is Sky the Blue Ranger and Jack the Red Ranger, considering he has no experience and also a thief? The reason why I don't put SPD higher is because of the Ranger teams. Compared to most Ranger teams where they learn something and they know it, with them, every several episodes they have to learn to work together, and it's frustrating since they work for emergency services. They could have done some interesting things with Sam, but I guess the show couldn't afford another actor, so that's why they went for the floating ball. But he hardly got any focus, he was just there to fill in the gap. And I still think it was a stupid idea to introduce a battleizer before the team power-up. At number 13 is Wild Force. Now this was the last series in the Saban era, and it ended things on a high note for the most part anyway. Wild Force is a clunky series with top tier elements. As it goes through its narrative, it's on and off. It doesn't really find its stride till the Sunaku arc, but after that it slows down and goes back to on and off again. But the finale end of the Power Rangers is great. Just seeing the Wild Swords get destroyed but also coming back, but seeing the Rangers finding their purpose after being Rangers was so satisfying. I love Reinforcements of the Future. It's a great epilogue to Time Force. Forever Red will always be the best anniversary. It's a perfect combination of what I loved about the Saban era.
I was starting to wonder whether you'd show up at all.
You didn't think I was going to let you do this without the original Red Ranger, did you?
Taylor is one of my favourite Yellow Rangers. The rest of the Rangers were fine at best. Another time when the show was firing at all cylinders when they focused on Cole and his heritage. Master Org had the makings of a great villain, but everything surrounding him wasn't so great. There was only so much you could do with Gingerax and Toxica. The The best thing to come out of Wild Force were the swords. At the time, this was revolutionary with its sword swapping mechanic with endless combinations, but also they made the swords into characters, but also an extension of the Rangers rather than just being part of an arsenal. And the Isis Megazord is still my favourite Megazord of all time. Who never thought an armadillo as a football would be awesome?
Isis Megazord! Final strike!
At number 12 is the last seasons of Power Rangers, Dino Fury and Cosmic Fury. Now this was a tough one. If this was just the 2 seasons of Dino Fury, this would have been in my top 10. But Dino Fury was the second show to be distributed by Hasbro. But this time around it had a new showrunner, a new creative team behind it. And I will say Dino Fury was one of the most refreshing seasons in a long time. From a production point of view, it was a breath of fresh air. Everything from camera work, stunt work, set locations, fight choreography, even the music was different. The writing was on point. I love the characterizations of the Rangers and the villains. I'm not calling this series perfect. It does have its handful of bad episodes, and also Ion I found to be whiny and childish most of the time, but I loved the stuff they took from Rouge Soldier, whether it's the suits, the swords, the arsenal, the monster designs, the power-ups. And this time around, I loved how the Ultra Sword is much more simplified. This time around, it isn't stuff on top of stuff on top of stuff. Jane and J-Borg were just there for comic relief, but they weren't funny and they just didn't have their own story to tell. On a personal level, during the pandemic of 2021, I wasn't working, so I was able to watch these episodes weekly and review them weekly on my channel, which was a ton of fun. But when we get to Cosmic Fury, it's kind of a different story. It did take a massive step of not relying on Sentai footage and gave us the most original series to date. And with just 10 episodes, it was able to accomplish a lot. With pushing Rangers to their new boundaries, like Amelia becoming the Red Ranger, Sato becoming the Morphin Master, Harvey sacrificing his arm. But it was great to see past Rangers return, Billy coming back to give the Rangers new powers, Heckle finally becoming the Dark Ranger, which fans been wanting for years. From a narrative point of view, it's solid enough, but it's not as good as the 2 seasons of Dino Fury. Lord Zed coming back and becoming the main villain doesn't really do anything or anything new either until the last couple of episodes. Ollie becoming evil for most of the series overstays its welcome, but I can understand why they went for that approach since the actor had other filming commitments, so he couldn't film with the other Rangers. And I didn't care for the Cosmic Fury swords, they were just there to fill in the gaps. But I will say Cosmic Fury does have its flaws compared to Dino Fury, but it still ends this 30-year journey on a high note.
Cool, yo.
At number 11 is Ninja Storm. This has the feels of a fun Saturday morning cartoon, and we forget Ninja Storm was a big deal when it came out. This was the first series to be released by Disney. They changed the filming location to New Zealand. It was the first series to start off the Free Ranger format. We have a guy as the Yellow Ranger and we have a woman as the Blue Ranger. But to me, Ninja Storm is a fun, thought-out, wacky season that doesn't take itself seriously. I never took Lothal seriously, which isn't always a bad thing, but I loved it how these Rangers are into their extreme sports, and Cam started off as the traditional guy in the chair but eventually becomes a Ranger. Hunter is the least interesting Ranger by far, but Tori and Dustin more than make up for it. But what I loved most about Ninja Storm, that it has some crazy out there fun filler episodes that other seasons would struggle to pull off, like Blake and Hunter stuck in the bottom of a popcorn bucket, and you got Blake and Cam falling in love with Tori, and you got Tori waking up in this dreamlike world where the monsters are good and the Rangers are bad. And it also has some great Red Ranger focus episodes like Shane's Karma and Eye of the Storm. At number 10 is Jungle Fury, a truly underrated series that doesn't get enough love. It goes all in with its kung fu theme, and for a show that's only 32 episodes, it's well constructed. Even the filler episodes push the narrative in some way. It was the first series to introduce a Purple Ranger. Not only is RJ one of my favourite 6 Rangers, but he's also a great mentor. If the Ranger screwed up, he would be like, who cares you screwed up, just use that as a lesson.
Man, you asked me to train you and I have.
How? By fixing your chair?
See? Use the screwdriver motion to catch the punch.
But also the Spirit Rangers was such a cool concept which led to a great arc. I loved it how Jungle Fury changed villains every several episodes to progress the Daishi arc, whether it's the Five Fingers of Poison, the Overlords, the Phantom Beasts. Jungle Fury is a great series that stands on its own without any other connections to other seasons. And number 9 is Lightspeed Rescue. Easily has one of the best theme songs in the franchise.
A signal is calling, our planet is falling. The danger will test you, better make it a Lightspeed Rescue.
I loved it how this time around it wasn't magic or alien technology, it was a military operation that created all these powers and weapons, and the Titanium Ranger arc was the foundations to that. Carter is the ideal person to become a Red Ranger, but also Lightspeed Rescue has some phenomenal episodes, whether it's Trial by Fire, Yesterday Again, even Go Full Can, which couldn't be released on UK television because it has an appearance of a realistic firearm where people get held hostage on a bus. Now these days Power Rangers would be scared to do those types of stories again. Not only do I think Face from the Past is the best episode in the series, but it's also my favourite Red Ranger focus episode of all time. And I know I said the Isis Megazord is my favourite Megazord of all time, but the Super Train Megazord will always be that close second.
What?
And number 8 is the one that started all season 1 of Mighty Morphin. Out of all these seasons, this is the one that has the most basic formula and rarely goes out of it. Like when Rita summons a monster, the Rangers fight the monster gets destroyed, the monster grows big, the Rangers summon the Megazord and destroys the monster, and that's pretty much it. There's only a few stories that goes outside the formula like Island of Illusions and Doomsday. To me, Mighty Morphin season 1 is a fun, cheesy, nostalgic show. The episodes can be messy, and I think it's because Saban was finding their footing of how they adapt the Japanese footage, which gave the show a sense of realism. We forget this came out back in 1993, and this was something new. This wasn't another cartoon. Green with Evil will always be a personal favourite of mine, not just because it introduces my favourite Ranger of all time, Tommy, but also it pushes the Rangers to the test. It broke the formula. It had stakes.
Will you join us, Tommy?
Whether it's Jason, Billy, Zack, Trini, Kimberly or Tommy, they were the coolest people in the 90s. They made it look easy, but also the show has my favourite lineup of monsters. Whether it's Pudgy Pig, King Sphinx, Eye Guy, the Minotaur. I mean, as a kid, they look scary, but I love the fact they were also based on Greek and European mythology. And number 7 is Dino Thunder, and I always looked at this as the modern day version of Mighty Morphin. This was high school done right. These were teenagers with attitude. They don't get along at the beginning. They have commitments they rather put first. Connor can be a sexist jerk at the beginning. Kira is my favourite Yellow Ranger of all time. She's this fleshed out teen without any ego issues who's good friends with everyone. It was great to see Tommy again in the mentor role.
There's 2 things you guys need to learn about Dino Gyms. 1, you can't choose them. They choose you.
What's the other?
They go real well with Dino Morphers.
Aren't you a little old for this, Tommy?
I may be old, but I can still pull it off.
Fighting Spirit is easily my favourite episode in the series. It's a great tribute to the character. I do think the White Ranger arc overdue its welcome, and I do think the Cell Track storyline didn't really hit its full potential. It would have been more beneficial if they could just get another Ranger from the past, something like Billy. I think they wanted to do that. But Dino Thunder captures the essence of a high school soap opera with great characters. And number 6 is Mighty Morphin Season 3. Besides from the Alien Ranger arc, which was a cheap way to set up for Zeo, and the backdoor pilot for The Masked Rider, which was a show that failed, this is still my favourite Mighty Morphin series. I think they handled the Japanese footage better this time around, along with the original footage, which led to some fresh and interesting stories and ideas. Rocky, Adam and Aisha have really grown into their characters this time and had some better focus episodes. Kimberly easily had the best send-off out of the original cast. She had a compelling arc with a great replacement of Catherine. Ninja Ranger mode, along with the Tango Warriors, added a new dynamic of fun and creativity to the civilian fights. Also, Season 3 was the start of expanding the world building, which played a big part in later seasons, but I also love it how Season 3 took a step back from the Monster of the Week stories and gave us some really great arts like Ninja Quest, Different Shade of Pink, changing the Zords, Master Fire, the metallic armor. The Rangers were pushed to their limits. At one point, Zed and Rita were winning. And this may be a hot take, but I do think the Shogun Megazord and the Ninja Megazord are still my favourite Megazords from the Mighty Morphin era. At number 5 is here, and I will admit this series has flaws. For example, I love the concept of the Machine Empire, but I do think King Mondo was a lackluster villain. I do think Prince Gasket was a much better villain. I wish Rita and Zed were the main villains just for a short period of time. Eric the Conqueror is just there for the sake of we can't work around the Sentai village. But the thing that really annoys me about Zeo, that it doesn't have a proper ending that somehow transitions into Turbo. That being said, Zeo took everything I loved about Mighty Morphin Season 3, but gave it a new paint job thanks to O-Ranger. But this time around we got better storylines, great character development. Rocky, Adam and Catherine had their own identity. We dived much more into the world building whilst expanding at the same time. The best thing to come out of Zeo was the Gold Ranger arc with the return of Jason. Zeo to me is a fun and colourful series. And number 4 is RPM, arguably the greatest season among the fan bases. And this was the last series to be produced by Disney, and I guess the showrunner was like, fuck it, let's do whatever we want, let's do things that haven't been done before in Power Rangers, and they did a complete 180 on Go-Onger. Road to Corinth was a premiere that didn't focus on the central 3 Rangers. It was mainly about Siggy and Dylan getting to safety. For a first episode, it hardly had any Ranger stuff.
What's a Power Ranger?
And RPM wasn't afraid to shy away from the grim stuff. You got humanity getting mostly wiped out. You got most of Earth getting contaminated. On top of that, you got characters getting killed off screen and mafia corruption. You have some of the best character study in Power Rangers in this series, like Dr. K. You feel sorry for her even though she's the one that caused all of this. Even though at the end Fenjix was destroyed, he still kind of won, with most of humanity getting wiped out and most of Earth being a wasteland. Siggy is my favourite Green Ranger of all time, and I'm not including Tommy of course, but he's the comic relief that the show need because it is a really dark series.
Sometimes when I morph, I can't help but notice this gigantic explosion right behind me for no apparent reason.
I assume you're referring to the residual energy runoff that is sometimes necessary to clear the suit's biofield channels during the morph.
I'm referring to the 6-story high fireballs, like that one, right there. Now, could that happen to me in the kitchen or something?
And number 3 is Lost Galaxy. To me, Lost Galaxy was my generation of Power Rangers. I remember watching this back in 1999 from start to finish on Fox Kids. Lost Galaxy was also the first series not to have teenagers, more like young adults with professions. But also, Lost Galaxy was another series that did a 180 from its Sentai counterpart. Gigaman was a nature-themed Sentai series, but then Lost Galaxy came along and had that Star Trek makeover. I love the idea of Terra Venture, this space colony searching across the galaxy with different Earth's environments. The look and the design is top tier sci-fi, but there's so many reasons why I love Lost Galaxy. Chikina and Deviant were great villains. To the 10th Power was the first proper team up while she got Kendrick sacrificing herself.
I'm okay. I'll always be here.
The Magna Defender arc was compelling.
Goodness still in my heart.
I'm proud of you, Father.
No, Zika, I am proud of you. Thank you, son, for showing me the way.
The rescue mission, which had an alien vibe to it. And Quasar Quest is a premiere that moved away from the Zordon era by giving us a new setting and new characters, and it's still the only series not to be set on Earth. And I love the Quasar Sabers, they're still my favourite weapons in the franchise. I just love the sword and the stone mythology to it. Journey's End is a top tier finale. Not only does it do a great job of wrapping up its story arcs and its characters, and also Jakina turns her army into suicide bombers, which you would never see that again in any kids show. But I loved it how the show started on Miranoid, and the Rangers didn't realise until the last 5 minutes of the finale that they're back on Miranoid, and they put their swords back into the stone and the curse was broken. At second place is In Space. This one will always be a close second to me. There's some days I want to put it at number 1, but the stakes have never been high this before in a Power Rangers series. It wasn't just the Earth this time, it was the universe. This show wrapped up 6 years of storytelling that begun in Mighty Morphin. The Turbo cast were handled much better dealing with serious storylines this time. Andros was a Red Ranger that the show needed. TJ excels as the Blue Ranger, but this time around the villains were much more complex. You felt sympathy for Astronomer. She was adopted as a kid and she discovered that Andros is his brother, but she was stripped of her humanity and turned pure evil. Ecliptor was loyal. There was this father and daughter dynamic between him and Astronomer. I do think he should have got a second chance on the Sea Wave. But also the Psycho Ranger arc is, to me, is my favourite arc in Power Rangers. The Rangers were pushed to their limits. 3 were bad enough, yet alone 5.
We're the Psycho Rangers. We're faster than you, smarter than you,
Stronger than you. But we're evil.
We can all agree Countdown to Destruction is the greatest finale in Power Rangers. So many great moments like a Corone turning good again, Andros killing Zordon so he can release an energy wave destroying all evil in the universe, and of course my favourite moment, Bulk and Skull fighting alongside the Rangers, 6 years in the making.
Come on, let's get in there! Who's with me?
And I know I said the Isis Megazord and the Super Train Megazord are my favourite Megazords, but in terms of lineup, I think In Space takes it. I love the Astro Megazord, the Delta Megazord, the Astro Delta Megazord, the Mega Voyager, the Mega Winger. So my favourite series of all time is Time Force. This one will always be my favourite. There's a lot of elements in this are just top tier. Wes is my favourite Red Ranger of all time. Not following in his father's footsteps was something human and relatable. Jen is my favourite Pink Ranger of all time. She broke new ground for Pink Rangers. Rancic is my favourite villain of all time. This sick, twisted villain that you felt sorry for by the end. And Red Battle Warrior is my favourite battleizer of all time. For a team that uses future technology, it was nice to have something from medieval time. And I do think it's the most beautiful looking battleizer to date. Force from the Future is still my favourite premiere of all time. They killed off a Red Ranger in the first episode. And also it has my favourite episode lineup. Dawn of Destiny, Fight Against Fate, Destiny Defeated. This was the true test of the Rangers and also the turning point of whether the Rangers were going to win or lose. A lot of people don't know about this, but Time Force had so many possibilities. Showing on prime time, having a second series, having its own movie. The best thing about Time Force was the writing, that they really captured the time travel stuff, but also it had some mature and gritty stuff to it. But there's a lot of fun to be had with Time Force. Movie madness will always be a personal favourite of mine. A monster that's able to put the Rangers in different movie genres. And I've got to give a shout out to Eric, who is still my second favourite Sixth Ranger of all time. And I know there's an argument to be made that Lucas, Trip and Katie don't get a lot of material to work with compared to Wes, Jen and Eric, but I still think they get some well-rounded episodes, especially Trip.
You want to destroy him because he's a mutant? Well, you don't even know his story. You hate him because he looks different. Well, if you have to destroy everything that's different than you, then you'd better destroy me too.
What? Trip, no! Trip, please, no! You can't do this!
It's okay. I'm not afraid to stand up for what's right.
To me, Time Force is a great looking sci-fi show with compelling characters and storylines with a badass opening. Time Force isn't just my favourite Power Rangers series of all time, it's arguably my favourite show of all time, and that ending still makes me cry.
I think the future looks pretty bright.
Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Go like, share and subscribe. Let me know, where would you rank all the Power Rangers seasons? This video was tough to do, and this would be my last Power Ranger video I'll be doing for a while, but go check out my Facebook, my Twitter, my Instagram page. You guys are awesome. I got your back.